All right, congratulations. You found me. It's me, Uncle Lou. Live on LouTube for you, kinda. This, of course, is the second channel. So if you're new here, welcome. I'm trying to stay calm here. We're going to get to the video in just a second. My YouTube channel was hacked. My main channel that I've had for 11 years, 75,000 subscribers. I'm too technologically stupid to even try to explain to you how or why it happened. The point is, it happened. I've been in touch with some people at YouTube. They seem to think they can get it back for me, but they're not sure how long it could take. It might be today. It might be a week from today. So I'm choosing to remain optimistic. I'm trying to stay calm here. But in the meantime, we're going to be posting the football videos over here on this channel, the second channel, where I normally just do the morning show every morning. So hopefully the majority of you find this channel this week and we get whatever this is going on with my channel. I don't know. Someone hacked the channel. They live streamed a crypto commercial and then deleted the channel. Apparently this is something that's been happening a lot lately to YouTube creators. And from what little information I've got so far, it looks like I will probably get the channel back like nothing ever happened. But again, not sure how long. Anyway, I've got a list of a few things I want to talk about today when it comes to college football. I've been making this list over the last couple of days, and some of these things I was going to do individual videos about, but instead I said, let's just do a condensed version, 10 minutes or so. I say that all the time, and then it's a 20-minute video. But what is wrong with LSU's offense? Is anything wrong? I want to talk about LSU's offense and, of course, Brian Kelly's response to the questions about his offense. He yelled at the reporters the other day after the game, and then yesterday apologized to the reporters. Same thing with Texas. What's wrong with Arch Manning? I don't know. We're going to talk about that too. Arch Manning, Texas, their offense. Is Arch Manning a bust? Is he hurt? What's going on with that? Coaches being fired in week 3. Mind-blowing to me. I understand why. I get it, but I'm old school. It used to be the season ended on Thanksgiving weekend, and then Monday was firing day. Like, that's when the coaches got fired, and it's getting earlier and earlier. We'll talk some about that. There's been an update to the transfer portal. That's from a couple of weeks ago. You probably already know about that. And this weird phenomenon going on with different fan bases across the country that are bragging about losses to Georgia, primarily Georgia Tech, Florida, and Tennessee. But anyway, let's start with the LSU offense. Now, their first game of the year was on the road at Clemson. Now, we know a lot more about Clemson than we knew when that game was played, okay? But I want you to try to go back in time and remember your mindset heading into that LSU-Clemson game. Maybe you didn't think Clemson was a national title contending team or whatever the case, but you probably thought they had a pretty good defense, right? So that game is played. There wasn't a lot of offense. It was a conservative game plan, low scoring on both sides. And in week 1, we saw a lot of that. Remember the Texas-Ohio State game was low scoring. There was a lot of that going on in week 1. So I didn't have any sort of massive concern about LSU's offense, or Clemson's really for that matter, coming out of that week 1 game because of those reasons. 2 good defenses, we thought, conservative game plans because it's week 1, whatever, rusty offenses, you name it. Not a lot of reason to be concerned. The main thing about the LSU-Clemson game was that LSU won, and that's obviously great, and that's still a win, and LSU's undefeated. And I've got LSU ranked in my top 5. So by discussing LSU's offense and what might be wrong with it, it's not an indication I think LSU is a 6-win team. I've got them in my top 5. LSU went on the following week to play Louisiana Tech. They started out really slow in that game. The offense didn't really get going at all until the second half. And you can kind of write that off. I did as well. They had a huge game last week. They got a huge game next week, that being the Florida game, which has now been played. This is like a nothing sandwich game against a lower classification in-state school. No big deal. The offense didn't score 100, right? Well, then the Florida game comes around. And there's a couple of different issues offensively for LSU, I think, with the Florida game. The first one is obvious. They only scored 20 points. Well, then you dig deeper into that. That's 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. One of those touchdowns was a defensive touchdown on a pick 6. So offensively, they only scored 1 touchdown at home at night against Florida, a team that is reeling. Now, does Florida have a good defense? Maybe. It looks that way. They've only given up a couple of touchdowns through 3 games, Florida has, even though they're 1-2. But DJ Lagway threw 5 interceptions in that game. That's 5 additional possessions for LSU. 4 if you consider the fact that one of those interceptions was returned for a pick 6. But still, that's 4 extra possessions LSU got on top of the just sort of number of possessions you get in the overall sort of course of the game. And they only managed to score the 1 touchdown. Nussmeier hasn't looked great. He hasn't looked bad, but again, you're talking about a team here, LSU, that was picked by some people to win the national title, picked by a lot of people to win the SEC and make the playoffs, and a quarterback in Nussmeier who was on almost everybody's preseason Heisman list and on everyone's short list of best returning quarterbacks in all of college football, plus the wide receivers they have, plus what we were told would be a revamped defense, which I think has been a positive for LSU. The defense has played great. But yet here we are 3 weeks through the season, 25% of the regular season gone now. And I think it's fair to question, where is the LSU offense? Again, we're talking about first world problems here. I think LSU's a good team. I've got them in my top 5. They're 3-0. They've beat 2 Power 4 teams. They're 1-0 in the SEC. Like, there's a lot of positives. I'm not here to pile on LSU, but I think it's a legitimate question to ask, is maybe the defense more improved even than people thought, but the offense is lagging behind? And if so, what's the reason for that? They haven't ran the ball well. Nussmeier hasn't put up the numbers that myself and a lot of other people expected to see. And then Brian Kelly just blows up at the reporters for asking what are really obvious questions after 3 weeks of the season, which is, what's going on with the offense? Why can't you run the ball? Why are you bad on 3rd down? Just the obvious things that stand out when you watch LSU play. LSU's got some tough games coming up. Of course, they play Bama. They play the whole entire SEC slate for LSU is still to come, with the exception of the Florida game, which they won. I don't think LSU's falling off the map. I don't think they're struggling to make a bowl game, and they're probably still going to get to a minimum of 8 or 9 wins. The only question I have about LSU now through 3 games is the same question I had about them heading into the season. Are they a 9-3 team that's just on the outside of the playoffs looking in, or do they find a way to go to 10-2 or potentially 11-1 SEC championship and a trip to the playoffs? That's the only. The question isn't, are they going to be good or are they going to be bad? They're going to be good. So how good? Just good? Really good? Great? I think the offense is going to have to play better if they're going to win some of these games they have coming up on the schedule, particularly some of these road games. But I think it's a fair question to ask, what is going on with LSU's offense? And for Brian Kelly to get that upset at the reporter for asking those questions, it's kind of ridiculous. He should have known those questions were coming. And it's even funnier to me that he came out 2 days later, yesterday, Monday, and apologized to the reporters for those comments. And I'm pretty sure somebody at the university probably got a hold of him, and it was one of those forced hostage apologies, where it looks like somebody's standing off to the side with a gun to his head, kind of making him say it or whatever. But anyway, we'll see what LSU's offense does going forward. But to me, it hasn't been nearly as good as I thought it would be this season. Now, Arch Manning, Texas, and LSU's offense, very similar story. The first game of the year, they play on the road, same as Clemson. They played at Ohio State. The offense was bad. Arch Manning didn't look good. You write some of that off, right? Well, Arch Manning's a first-year starter, even though he had multiple starts when Quinn Ewers got hurt in previous years and had roles in a lot of big games where Sarkisian would rotate him in on occasion. You say, well, he spent all offseason, knowing he's the starter. It's nervous. Ohio State's a really good team. That's an intimidating environment to play in on the road in week 1 in Columbus. And Ohio State's probably got a top 5 defense. So, yeah, the offense wasn't great, but you were looking at Texas' schedule coming out of that Ohio State game, and you go, well, they got 3 games here coming up against lower classification schools that they should be able to kind of just name your number, score whatever you want on them. And they can use those 3 games to sort of polish Arch Manning up. And by the time those 3 games come and go, we will have forgotten all these questions about Arch Manning and the Texas offense that came out of the Ohio State game, because they'll be lighting up the scoreboard. Well, now we've seen 2 of those games, and it seems to be getting worse. The first game after Ohio State, Arch Manning started out slow, but played okay, particularly in the second and third quarters, and Texas ran the score up a little bit against a really bad team. Then this past week, the wheels just completely fell off for Arch Manning and the Texas offense. At one point, he had 10 straight incompletions and was getting booed by his home crowd against UTSA, a lower classification in-state school that, while UTSA may be a decent group of 5 team, they've got zero business competing with Texas or limiting their offense in that way. You've got the questions about Arch Manning's health or injury status. Sarkisian kind of blew that off, tried to make a joke about reporters going to the bathroom and what would it look like if someone took a picture of you when you were going to the bathroom. Well, that's the same thing as taking a picture of Arch Manning while he's throwing the ball. Maybe that's just the face he makes. But just like with Brian Kelly, when a reporter asks an obvious question that the head coach should know is coming, you got to have a better answer than that. Getting mad is not the answer. Being sarcastic is not the answer. Making a bathroom joke, none of that makes the story go away or eases the concerns of those Texas beat reporters, beat writers, college football fans, idiots like me on YouTube who just watch college football on Saturdays. I don't know enough about the history of Arch Manning and sort of his mechanics over time to be able to watch Arch Manning play today and go, oh, yeah, he's throwing with a totally different arm angle than he used to throw with, or he's not driving off his back leg like he used to do. He must be injured. I don't know. I watch the games and I react to what I see. And when I watch Texas offense in general, and particularly Arch Manning, it just doesn't look good. The reason might be important, but it's irrelevant to me in terms of what it means for Texas. What it means for Texas so far through the first 3 weeks of the season is that they've got quarterback issues. There was a ton of hype and expectation placed on Arch Manning, and none of it was Arch Manning's fault. He doesn't appear to be a player that is seeking the spotlight. He seems, from what I can tell, to kind of keep to himself. He hasn't been running around telling everybody how good he's going to be, right? It's everybody else talking about how good he's going to be. And the reality is, he never could have lived up to the expectations that some people heaped on him. You're talking about a guy who was getting ready to be a first-year starting quarterback. People were already making him the favorite for the Heisman, the Maxwell Award, putting him on lists of top 5 quarterbacks in all of college football. All of that was ridiculous. Texas could have played their first 3 games of the year and had a pretty good offense that averaged 30, 35 points a game. Arch Manning could be averaging 250, 275 a game with, 8 touchdowns and 1 interception. And that still wouldn't be enough for some of the hype that was placed on him in the preseason. Unless Texas went undefeated this year, won the SEC, and then ran through the playoffs and won a national title and finished 15-0, whatever it was, and Arch Manning won the Heisman, some people would have looked at it as a letdown, as a disappointment, as not living up to the hype. So from that respect, that's not Arch Manning's fault. In terms of whose fault, like the people that, he's going to be this, he's going to be that, he's going to be great, he's top 5 quarterback in college football, that's out of Arch Manning's control. How good people thought he was going to be is out of Arch Manning's control. What's in Arch Manning's control is how good he plays, how well he prepares, how he practices. I don't know what the problem is. For all I know, there is no problem. And the haters were right. And Arch Manning does have a lot of haters because of his last name and the amount of hype and expectation that was prematurely dumped in his lap, really through no fault of his own. It's not his fault what his last name is. But it's looking through the first 3 weeks of the season like some of the Arch Manning haters might be right. And maybe he is a bust. I'm not going to put that label on him now through the first 3 weeks. But it's clear to me now, and it should be clear to everybody, why Quinn Ewers remained the starting quarterback at Texas through the end of last season, despite the fact that there were a lot of fans and media members calling for him to be benched and replaced with Arch Manning last year. He has not looked good. There's no sugarcoating it in any game this season. And appears to be getting worse during a portion of the schedule where he should be getting better. You can excuse the Ohio State performance on the road. There's plenty of reasons you could point to as to why he didn't put up big numbers in that game. There's no reason to point to for these last 2. They've got one more tune-up this coming week against another lower classification school. before SEC play starts. They go on the road to Florida. Florida's a disaster of a program, but they got a pretty good defense. I mentioned earlier, they've only given up 2 touchdowns total through their first 3 games. And yet somehow they're 1-2. So, I mean, they're not a very good team, but so something's got to happen here offensively with Texas, or a lot of people, myself included, are going to have to recalculate our expectations for Texas that we had in the preseason. Texas does not look like a team right now who's going to be playing for an SEC championship in Atlanta or making the playoffs. They play at Texas or at Florida. They play at Georgia. They play Oklahoma, who looks miles better than Texas right now. They play Texas A&M at the end of the season. Texas A&M looks better than Texas right now. Now, that doesn't matter. They don't play Texas now. It only matters who's better the day that Texas plays those teams. And Arch Manning, like a lot of first-year starting quarterbacks, does have the potential to get better as the season goes along. So we'll see. But so far, through the first 3 weeks, any assessment of the Texas offense and Arch Manning other than disappointing seems inaccurate to me. Georgia, well, Georgia Tech fans, Florida fans, and now Tennessee fans almost competing with each other to see who can brag more about their loss to Georgia is getting a little strange to me. It started last year with the Florida game. DJ Lagway got the start in that game against Georgia. And early in the game, he did throw a touchdown pass, and Florida did have the lead. And then he got hurt. That is all true. It's also true that he was 2 for 6 for 40 yards when he got hurt. Now, one of those 2 completions was a touchdown, and that is what it is. I'm not trying to diminish that. And then Florida loses the game by 2 touchdowns. And all we heard for the remainder of the season and the entirety of the offseason is how close Florida was to beating Georgia. We only lost by 2 touchdowns. We were winning in the first quarter. If DJ Lagway wouldn't have got hurt, we'd have beat you by 1 million. We only lost by 2 touchdowns. This is unbelievable. We must be going to beat them next year. He was 2 for 6, guys. He was 2 for 6 and was hurt in the first quarter. How? But anyway, you had your 8 months. You bragged about it. Now here we go. The season has started, and you figured out what I've been telling you for a long time, which is that Florida's just not very good, and Lagway's overhyped, and the guy's done, throws 5 interceptions this past weekend against LSU. Over the course of his limited career now, DJ Lagway has 15 interceptions and 11 touchdowns against FBS opponents. But that doesn't stop the Florida man from bragging about that loss to Georgia from last year. The Georgia Tech game last year at the end of the year goes to 8 overtimes or whatever it was, and Georgia Tech loses. All offseason, I hear about it. Oh, you almost lost to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech took you to overtime. You beat Georgia Tech in overtime. We what? Georgia Tech in overtime? Beat them? Yeah, beat them. That's right. We beat. I don't understand this bragging about losses thing. I don't get it. Now the Tennessee game comes around. And look, Tennessee played a good game. They haven't been within 14 points of Georgia since I can't remember when. And they've lost now 9 years in a row. And yeah, the majority of the games have been blowouts in Athens and in Knoxville, where this past weekend's game was. And yeah, this game went to overtime. And yeah, Tennessee missed a field goal. Well, you ever heard the expression, the 3 phases of the game? Offense, defense, special teams. Well, we'd have beat you if we didn't miss that kick. Well, we'd have blown you out if we weren't losing 21-7 in the first quarter. But the first quarter is part of the game. Just like special teams is part of the game. This pointing out, if this didn't happen and if that didn't happen and if the other thing didn't happen, we could have beat you. Congratulations. I mean, pat you on your peanut head there. I don't know what you... I don't get it. Specialty, being able to make field goals it's really no different than being able to sack the quarterback or not, or being able to get off the field defensively on 3rd down or not, or be able to convert on 4th and 6 like Georgia did. Georgia had to score a touchdown on 4th and 6 just to get the ability to attempt a 2-point conversion to tie it up. And they not only had those opportunities, they successfully did it. They scored a touchdown on 4th and 6 to get within 2. They were successful on the 2-point conversion. Like, They did what they had to do at the end of the game to win. You didn't. And you're bragging about it. You're bragging about a loss. I don't get it. What else did I want to talk about? Let's see. LSU's offense, we did that. Oh, coaches getting fired. Now, I know I'm old as Methuselah. I'm old as the hills. I'm old as dirt, whatever you want to say. But I remember the good old days where you'd watch rivalry weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. The games would end on Saturday. And then sometimes on Sunday, usually on Monday, that was firing day. That was the day coaches got fired after the last game of the regular season. Now, things, of course, have changed in college football, most notably the calendar. And the amounts of money involved for the coaches too, but the calendar, right? You've got now signing day the second week of December. The portal opens in December for now. Or not for now. That'll be the last thing we talk about, the change to the portal. But that's how it's been. So a lot of these schools now have decided, hey, look, the signing day is in early December. That's been moved up. Used to be just in February. Now it's been moved up to December. So we got signing day in December. We've got the portal in December. We got to make a decision on our coach sooner rather than later, right? Because you fire your coach the day after Thanksgiving and signing day is in 2 weeks. What are those recruits supposed to think? You got no head coach. They decommit, they go somewhere else. So schools started firing their coaches earlier and earlier. Middle of November. Go back to 2020, 2021. Instead of waiting till after the rivalry weekend, coaches started getting fired, the first, second week in November. You go back last year and the year before, coaches were getting fired in the middle of October. Now here we are, 2025, and 2 coaches have found themselves out of a job after week 3. UCLA and Virginia Tech both firing their coaches after this past weekend's games. Now, I think it's the right decision. I've long been an advocate for and stated multiple times that I believe when a school makes the decision that their current coach is not going to be their coach next year, there's no point in waiting, not even one day. You might just fire him and be done with it. I've never believed in keeping a coach around until a certain time if your mind is truly made up that you're going in a different direction for the following season. So I don't think Virginia Tech and UCLA have done anything wrong here. It's just, as an old person who's used to seeing coaches getting fired for a long time, not till after Thanksgiving, having to I knew UCLA and Virginia Tech were bad. But when I woke up Sunday morning, I didn't have a single thought in my head I wonder if, Foster and Pry are going to get fired today. I'm not wired to think that way in September, in week 3. I'm just now sort of starting to get used to thinking about it sort of in the mid to late October. And here we are now, week 3, and 2 coaches find themselves out of a job. The UCLA one, that had to be done. First of all, he never really should have got that job. Chip Kelly dipped out to take the offensive coordinator job at Ohio State, which maybe now we know why. That seems like a terribly run athletic department there. And they sort of just forced Foster into the head coaching job, and it was never going to work, and it hasn't worked. And then on top of that, they've got to live with the reality of Joey Aguilar throwing for 300 yards a game at Tennessee against SEC defenses, while Nico against UNLV and a bunch of group of 5 New Mexico can't complete a pass from here to there. Somebody has to be responsible for making that decision. Somebody has to pay for that decision. And that combined with his record, which is horrible, and an 0-3 start this year has led to Foster finding himself out of a job. And the Brent Pry thing at Virginia Tech just never really got off the ground. There was 2 seasons ago, so 2023, the last 5 or 6 games of the year, they had made a quarterback change and they won a few games at the end of the year. It got a little hot at the end of the year in 2023. And so there were some expectations for Virginia Tech heading into 2024. Last season, they were a lot of people's dark horse pick to compete to win the ACC last offseason heading into 2024. That ended immediately when they lost in week 1 to Vandy and had a disastrous season. And then this year, of course, has gotten off to a horrendous start, capped off by a loss this past weekend to in-state lower classification school Old Dominion. And that's it. They cut ties with Brent Pry. So not surprised at all that Virginia Tech and UCLA are going to have new head coaches for the 2026 season. I am still getting used to the idea that coaches can get fired in the middle of September. But anyway, I wanted to get that out. Those were just a list of 5 or 6 things that I had some thoughts on that I wanted to get out for y'all. And again, unfortunately, I'm having to put it on this second channel. I hope to have the situation with the main channel resolved sooner rather than later. I don't have a time frame or an update to give you, really. I've talked to some people, and it's anywhere from a day to 7 days. And again, I'm choosing to remain positive and optimistic here because that channel is something I've poured 11 years of my life into. Hopefully I'm able to get it back. And that's all I'm going to say about that now. I've done enough yelling, cussing, and screaming over the last 2 hours here at home. I don't need to do that on here. But anyway, I do appreciate you watching. The videos will continue to be uploaded to this channel. The call-in show tonight will be on this channel. Everything will be on this channel until I get everything resolved with the main channel. So spread the word if you can. Get the word out. I'll be on this channel at least temporarily. But I do appreciate you watching, and have a good morning.